there was an Exodus from Genesis, which is, I don't know which Farscape episode that is. It's definitely the first season. Exodus from Genesis. There was a departure. The word day in the Bible is the word Selah, anagram of Tesla, that was used to describe also the Ark of the Covenant. This knowledge is lost. That was an Exodus from Genesis. People who made Farscape knew this. This gave them incredible points with me. Incredible points they got for that episode. There's still stuff about Farscape I don't understand. Still perspectives that it could probably share with me. I've only watched it once. You know, ironically, nobody's paying me to watch Farscape. Nobody pays me to do what I do. And that it stole so much of my existence that has been messing around with my life outweighs this other truth that was known. I don't like the way it was approached. It's too dark. It's too dark. It's not enough people who understand it to make the necessary changes to our world. And while it is comforting on some level to find this huge group of sympathetic individuals within the system that I have been so diligently fighting, that is a huge thing. It's a big deal. I don't think I can work with them. I think I can work with you people. You're too bent on obeying the rules that you should be breaking. Complying with the lie. Selling out the people you shouldn't be selling out. And the ideals that you know better than to sell out. You know where it leads. You know what's going to happen if the big guy in the sky is not heeded. It's not what I want. I'm invested, but I can let go of that investment in almost a heartbeat. So what's the answer? I don't know. I'm looking at the big picture, trying to keep my eye on the ball, you know? Having some regrets about stuff that I've shared on YouTube. There's still a lot of very dark truths about me and my other esoteric work and my other, you say dark work. It's esoteric. A lot of people see it as, pornographic. Involving the nature of sexual expression on a level that deviates from the norm, you might say. A very, very specific way that I see things, that I do in that realm, in those aspects. There's a particular manifestation of the solar logos, of the manos of the solar logos that I found in the Bailey work on cosmic fire that resonates with my telos. It's the sixth manifestation. I'm in between 6 and 7 right now in the work that I'm doing. It's very rare for somebody in human form to take on that 7th work. I was approaching it. I feel like I've gone backwards since I found Farscape, which really did sort of change my life from perspective that DK or Alice Bailey's channeled work sort of guided that discovery. Is just sort of off the chart. At some point I might get into the details on how that manifests in the electronic world in YouTube. So in Farscape, John Crichton was shot through a wormhole. And when that happened, that refers to a lot of different events. It's a very much entendre, very multidimensional sort of metaphor in the Farscape show. How do you explain these very esoteric things? I don't know. I don't really know how to approach it. Which is sort of why it exists. It was a method for people who had been involved with sort of dubious investigations and explorations, experiments, people who had to sort of compromise their situation to keep from being mauled by the so-called justice system. You know, they were sort of pawned, I believe, to do things that they shouldn't have done, and you know, were not in a position to give an expose on. So what do? You do what other people have done. You make a movie or a TV show about it. It tells the story in metaphor. And it's forgivable on some level from that perspective. And you know, I'm not someone who doesn't believe in law and order. I'm very much used to be much more of a believer in it. Now I'm not sure if it's even possible. It seems like our justice system is completely corrupt, and here in the United States anyway, and serves very, very dubious interest, in my view. And it's not just special interest, it's not just corporate elitism, it's not just fiefdoms, it's not just corrupt drug lords and czars and all this. It's dubious. I just think the whole thing seems to be dubious. I mean, the people who are trained by the universities to be lawyers, you know, they have very, very specific sort of functions that they're expected to fulfill in service of the perpetuation of this sort of corruption. And there's a few leaders, renegades, you know, freedom fighters, you know, people who go against the corruption in the system, who don't get completely mangled and eaten up. There's not many. There's not many. And it seems the spirit of the law has been lost. And, you know, at least, you know, I guess, you know, I'm coming from a very, very sort of unique perspective. my perspective is fairly unique. There's no way I can seek justice. If I try to seek recompense or compensation for what has happened to me, for what's going on in my life, for what I have to deal with, it's most likely that I get killed, secretly assassinated, secretly murdered. It's been several attempts. It's been several messages. It's not so nice messages sent. And that's a very, very difficult thing. There's no justice in my life. And I'm not going to get into the gory details about the situation. But I will sort of dive into something that I wanted to discuss, and that is the collapse. What is actually happening, and what my perspective on what is happening with the supposed financial collapse of the United States. And this is very reminiscent of what we saw back during the time of the S&L bailouts, the previous Bush fallout from Neil Bush's S&L scandal back in the time of the previous sort of thing that's the system is presently going through. It's a problem with the system being used in this sort of knowingly malevolent, knowingly criminal way that is only possible because it's happening at the highest level. There's no policing for it because there's no official police to do it, and the official police who would be doing it are working for the bad guys. And so this is a huge problem. And so how do you deal with it? You break it. You break it down. It seems like destroying the system is the only way to deal with it. Is that going to work? Well, it might for a while. Is it going to happen? I think it might. I think what's going to happen is that the United States is going to be separated from the dollar. The United States government and the dollar are going to go their own ways. The United States might be broken up. It seems like all the other countries in the world are preparing for that. Breaking it up, not unlike what happened with the Soviet Union, which, in my view, collapsed for similar reasons. It wasn't the communism, it was really the atheism that destroyed the Soviet Union. It was the lack of touch with the reality of the nature of nature, their defiance of the Ark, the nature of the covenant between God and man. That's the biblical interpretation of it. That's not my understanding of it. My understanding of it is very different. I refer to it because, I was raised Catholic. Unfortunately, the Catholics that raised me didn't understand the Bible. And, they were astounded when their problem student, when the guy who wouldn't do his reading assignments, who wouldn't do his homework, was scoring the highest on the standardized aptitude tests. And, it's because of who they were. It's because of how they were approaching education that I found so fundamentally flawed, that I saw the lack of consistency in what they were preaching versus what they were practicing. They clearly didn't practice what they preached. And, it was seemingly, my younger upbringing was from a very corrupt, ignorant system, seemingly. And I don't want to blame people who were born into ignorance for being ignorant. You can't really do that. This is an old problem. This is something that's not going to be fixed overnight, if ever. And the situation with the nuclear fallout from Fukushima has been the heaviest thing on my mind, and I keep bringing that up because it relates directly to these cycles